on everybody, welcome back to Fraud on the Telly. In today's video, we're breaking down everything we learned from this week's episode of Four-Sided Dive, Critical Role's talk show, where Matt Mercer and Erika Ishii revealed all. As always, if you enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out Wednesday's video, What is the Calamity, where we break down everything we know about Critical Role's biggest calamitous event, a grand war between gods and mortals. Okay, let's get right into it. So they start the show off talking about the Death Wish run, the Death Race-esque run that the party participated 2 episodes ago now, I believe. Matt gets asked a question, one that I'm so happy he got asked because it was something I was very curious about. Was this event easier than he had intended? And yes, in fact, it was. Matt explained how integrating FCG into the crawler bike really helped kind of turn the tides for the group, because it basically allowed them an extra person without any penalty to movement that anyone else could have. Also, he could sling spells with his open hands, and just all of that together made the task a lot easier. You know, as a DM, I really think that our job is to present challenges to our players, and we reward them whenever they think outside the box and solve something in a way that you hadn't intended to solve. It's not always a bad thing. The challenge that you present to your party a lot of times could be hard, but if they're just intuitive or think outside the box and they manage to solve this problem in a very easy manner, you just learn from it and move on. It's a huge success, a huge story for your players. I like the way that Matt kind of approaches this, because I know that a lot of DMs maybe get a little salty when players act a little different or think outside the box and manage to solve problems in a way that they weren't expecting. Next, we get to the nitty-gritty, the questions we are here for, all the juicy details between Matt Mercer and Erika Ishii's scheming. Basically, Matt presented her with the option. She wanted some kind of Fae interaction with the story, and Matt presented her with the idea of, hey, this is where the narrative is going to take us with Fearne's story, and I guess the greater story with Ruidus and the Feywild, and this is just one way that you could be a part of it. That just way happened to be killing Fearne's parents, apparently. I absolutely love how this all played off. I know a lot of people in the community weren't so sure. I'm genuinely surprised that the cast actually was genuinely surprised. Apart from Travis and maybe Marisha, who had inklings, it seemed like everyone else had no idea. Taliesin said he had no idea. Ashley said they had no idea. Something like that is really hard to keep under wraps. Apparently they had to keep it under wraps from even some of their producers, which would make sense. If you don't want the story to get out and you're genuinely trying to keep it secret, you need to keep the number of people really tight knit, even going as far to keep art hidden from producers. I'm guessing the art of Yu's character when they did the character switch. That was probably a pretty cool moment for everyone in the studio when that happened. As well, they touch on a subject that we brought up in our episode breakdown video. Yes, it's most likely if Yu's character would have been an NPC or possibly any other guest, because I didn't know how closely intimate Erika Ishii was with the cast. I had no idea about that. Shows what I know. So in their opinion, literally probably them and maybe a couple other people could have gotten away with playing a character, playing this Among Us-esque style of D&D, which I absolutely love. I don't know about you guys, but I played a lot of Mafia, Werewolf, kids call it Among Us nowadays, when I was growing up. And that whole game and the way that Erika was playing it, playing 2 characters, which is super impressive by the way, really brings me back to playing Werewolf Live with a bunch of people, a lot of deception going on. I absolutely love it. Make sure though, before you do this in your own D&D campaign, that you make boundaries very clear, because Erika's not wrong. This could have potentially gone very wrong if it was a player that wasn't familiar with your group. It's very hard to be a player character that's an antagonist, that's not the DM, as that's kind of the whole idea about, you know, DM player boundaries. Basically, it went off here, though, without a hitch. Erika really threw Matt a curveball by acting super passive in the combat-esque section, because she very much could have been a boss battle. Like we said in our breakdown, there was basically no way that she was going to TPK the party. Apparently, though, Matt gave her a couple of items to help balance her out a little bit, to give her at least a fighting chance, which is really cool. Would love to know what those items were. As well, Erika talks about a lot of the breadcrumbs that she had left along the way, obviously like casting Lay on Hands, a lot of the things that she said knowing what we know about Dusk and you as different characters and her intentions, definitely kind of out herself. Obviously, it was hard to tell back then, but still very interesting. I like the idea that they gave the cast a chance to kind of question it. Even Ashley said, wow, I didn't question you at all, which totally makes sense if Erika is this person who they're very good friends with. They've played D&D with a lot, so they're used to having this person as an ally, not an antagonist. So of course it's going to just absolutely give you a curveball and you're not going to see it coming. They delve a little bit to how they create backstories for their character. Taliesin talks about how the way he created Ashton's backstory is very, very different from Percy's. As with Percy's, he very intentionally made it all from his own character perspective and then left a lot of things up to Matt. As with Ashton, they were a little more direct in what they wanted. I'm assuming with the Dunamis stuff is what he was talking about there in their backstory. Personally, I'm in kind of the Percy camp of backstory, probably because Campaign 1 and specifically the Briarwood arc had a lot of influence on me, especially how I play D&D a lot differently now than when I did when I was like 14. So I generally like to make characters' backstory pretty in-depth, but from the point of view of my characters' perspective, because I like to give the DM wriggle room. I like to be surprised. That's kind of the whole point of D&D. It's not fun if you just give someone basically a novella and you're like, okay, read my story back to me now, please. Don't do that, guys. Please don't do that. Matt drops a fun little tidbit of knowledge as well, saying that the events of Campaign 2, minor spoiler alert here, with Eeyore and the Eormatons, basically unlocked Eormatons as a playable character race in Critical Role, which is super fucking cool. The fact that their in-game decisions, I mean, this makes sense, impact greater D&D and like book lore that we can play with like modules and stuff. Like, that's really freaking cool. This being because Eormatons, unlike other automatons in the Critical Role universe in Exandria, aren't sentient, but Eormatons were sentient. To know more about that, make sure you go check out our What is Eeyore video. Back to the Erika, Dusk, and you stuff. Someone asked in the question on the show, what did she whisper to Chetney when Travis was hot on the case, his serrat muscles fully in flare, Travis transcending characters? Apparently, she just straight up said, I'm totally gonna kill them, which is not at all what I was guessing, because the look on Travis's face, he sells it so well. We talk a little bit about Maury, Fearne's grandmother, who we learn is not actually her grandmother, and she's been the one that's sending these cards to Fearne as well. It seems like, in my opinion, she's the one that's messing with Fearne's memory a little bit, as my theory is that Maury is most likely an archfey. She could be like a greater hag or something, but it seems most likely she's some kind of archfey. If they talk about her realm and things like that, she would have control over time and how things moved, and definitely perception like that. So this seems to be my kind of theory. Very curious to see what happens with that character, because we all know how tricky Fae can be. Very curious to see what turns out with this character, as they seem pretty powerful and influential, but we just don't know a lot about them. Someone asked a very interesting question to Matt about fate, and is fate a theme in Campaign 3, as we see a lot of characters being interlocked. Maybe this guy watched our theory video and looked at how it's possible that you can connect Ruidus to every single character, obviously with a little bit of stretches, hence why it's a theory. Matt says, this might or not be the case, basically avoiding the question, but he does give us a very interesting tidbit of knowledge that I've been really pondering since he said it. He says that there's elements of Campaign 3 that have been brewing since Campaign 1. Now, there's a lot of things that this could be. So many things this could be. One thing that comes to mind is possibly Artagan and his nature with the Feywild. See, now we're trying to connect events from Campaign 1 to Campaign 3. I mean, this could just mean Ruidus itself, as obviously we knew about the 2 moons in Campaign 1. It just wasn't a factor at all. So this could be something that, story-wise, he's been setting up behind the scenes since Campaign 1, or it could be something that was revealed to us. It's possible that this could be calamity things as well, because we don't know the nature of Ruidus. It's possible this could be stuff relating to gods, as it surely seems like it is, with the lore drop we got last episode about these apparently 2 missing gods. I really like the Artagan idea. It seems the most straightforward, because we know Artagan was trying to create a link from the Feywild to the Prime Material Plane. This could also be tied up in what's going on with Oton and her deal with the Feywild that we learned about. There seems to be something going on there as well with Eeyore appearing in the Feywild. Something's going on in the Feywild. Speaking of Oton Thal, the woman in Imogen's dreams, Matt asked a very pointed question. anything that he can reveal about her. He doesn't give us much, but he does tell her that people are right, apparently, in speculating that there are some things that she's tied into outside of Bosseroth, and I'm assuming outside of the Ruidus stuff. Now, this could be a lot of stuff. It's possible that this is Elixian stuff and the Netherdeep stuff, as I'm almost certain that these characters and these themes will make an appearance in Campaign 3. If they don't, I'm genuinely shocked. Like, I'm genuinely shocked if they don't, and they haven't been touched on at all. We know they're in Marquette. We know that the Netherdeep is underneath Ank'Harel right now. This just seems to be only a matter of time before it's implemented. So it's possible this is something to do with that. This is also could be something to do with the Feywild, Artagan, things like that. It's really hard to know. Maybe something with the Dunamancy trade that's happening in and out of Marquette that's going on. So many things it could be. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Well, Ashley gets asked about her thoughts of Fearne being Ruidusborn, since it seems like we can confirm it at this point that she is in fact Ruidusborn. I'm not so sure, honestly, because we're only judging it on her parents' word, but I guess it would make sense. The question is then, is Imogen Ruidusborn? Because that is also a very interesting theory that no, she's not Ruidusborn. She's just inherited some kind of powers from her mother who was Ruidusborn, hence the lightning scar marks on her. Hard to know. So many questions, so little answers. Ashley was just as surprised as I was that she was Ruidusborn. Did not see that coming. That seemed very much like it was going to be, in my mind at least, like Imogen's story. Like this was Imogen's story that somehow linked into the broader eventual campaign, which we finally learn what I guess a good chunk, possibly the whole entire campaign 3 is going to be based around. This whole what the fuck is going on with Ruidus and these apparently 2 gods that are missing and this apparent weird cult, maybe some might say, that's forming in the Feywild. There's just so many questions that we have for Critical Role Campaign 3 and not a lot of answers, but at least we're finally at the point where it feels like the campaign is really picking up. I mean, there's been some major lore drops we've done in the last couple of episodes compared to really the long kind of slow build that we've been getting to this point. We talked about this a lot in our The Problem with Campaign 3 video, but in my opinion, Campaign 3 has had a pacing problem. Now, don't get me wrong, I've enjoyed the fuck out of Campaign 3, but it is what it is. When you compare it to the other campaigns, it's paced way slower, so it seems finally like things are starting to heat up, and I love the direction that it's going. I love all the tie-ins from EXU Calamity, all this greater, deeper lore. I'm a sucker for that shit. I absolutely love it. I'm really excited to see what happens with Ruidus, with Imogen, with these supposedly missing gods, with everyone's backstory. To be honest, there's so many interesting characters in Campaign 3. This may be a hot take, but honestly, Campaign 3 has some of my favorite characters of all time from the cast members. Maybe we'll do a tier list soon. As always, if you enjoyed that video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts about the recent episodes of Critical Role in the comments down below. Let me know your theories of Ruidus as well, and your theories on what Matt might be talking about when he talks about elements and setup from Campaign 1 that's paying off right now in Campaign 3. As always, guys, thank you for watching my video. Stay safe out there. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, love, Antu.